In the introductory video, I explained that the study of ethics is the study of how to best live in the world. Virtue ethics is a brand of ethics that is primarily concerned with determining what comprises a good moral character. This is as opposed to other main branches such as deontology, which is primarily concerned with moral rules, and consequentialism, which is primarily concerned with the consequences of our actions. Rather than analyze what we ought to do, virtue ethicists want to know who we ought to be. What dispositions should we cultivate in order to rightly orient ourselves to the world? In other words, what character traits should we develop in order to direct ourselves toward particular beliefs, behaviors, and overall being? These dispositions or character traits are the virtues in question. Common virtues include honesty, humility, gratitude, compassion, and courage. After determining who we should be, how we should act will become evident, or so they would say. For example, once humility is established as a virtue, being a virtuous person in that respect would entail genuinely valuing others and not imagining yourself as superior. It would be to acknowledge your flaws and your strengths and those of others. This would then translate into acting in humility by celebrating others or planning collaboratively without assuming you know best, for example. Notice how the character came first and then that brought about their action. An environmental virtue ethics recognizes that we are just as intertwined with our environments as we are with our human communities, and thus must also consider how we live well within that context. Ethicist Ronald Sandler and his work on environmental virtue ethics details 4 different ways to accomplish this. From this list, we can see the trend that Rachel Fredericks, who we'll discuss more in next video, identified. Much of the work in environmental virtue ethics endeavors to either extend familiar virtues to environmental contexts or develop new environmental virtues. So the first strategy that Sandler gives us is applying or extending the typical person-to-person virtues to person-to-environment contexts. To continue the humility example, and following the work of Thomas Hill Jr., this would translate to not feeling superior to the environment, not feeling like you deserve control. Hill Jr. refers to this as rejecting self-importance, feeling equal to or accepting yourself as a part of nature with similar interests. Take, for example, cases of deforestation. I've linked an article in the description to a particular case from Indonesia where women-led groups of forest rangers scout for others who may be in the woods to cut or burn the trees to make way for coffee farms or to flush out animals for poaching. Their approach is gentle, and they try to speak kindly, sometimes giving others seeds to plant instead. They often refer to the interconnectedness between the jungle and their villages, as well as the country and worldwide influences of their work. In Hill Jr.'s view, people who destroy the environment are seen as lacking virtue because, in part, they view themselves as apart from or distant from nature, rather than a part of it. Even if they have been taught the value of nature, they treat it as insignificant or less important than their own interests. By first respecting and acknowledging their place alongside the forest, these Indonesian women cultivated humility and then sought to enact it in the world and impart it on others as well. I've linked another short news story, see if you can make similar connections. The second strategy that Sandler gives us is developing a disposition of appreciation for the environment because of the range of benefits it offers. Sandler explains this by describing features like how it provides clean air and water, and how it offers places to appreciate beauty, reconnect with oneself, and therefore develop emotionally, intellectually, and so on. The third strategy would be aiming for human excellence more generally, as doing so would presumably require contributing to positive relationships within human communities and the wider ecological community that they rely on and exist within. The fourth strategy is to shape your character on the character that you see demonstrated by others who you think are environmentally virtuous. Environmental activists like Greta Thunberg and Autumn Peltier come to mind. This connection will be discussed further in the next video, which introduces the importance of the virtue of environmental courage.